Greetings, Warlords. Rodge here. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the Skirmish Miniatures game by Studio Tomahawk. Joined once again by fan favorite Patrick. Patrick, how's it going, man?
It's going great, man. It's good to hear from you.
Good, yeah. We're getting them in pretty regularly here. Seems like every 3 or 4 or 5 months or something. You'll send me a message and say, hey, let's chat. So definitely appreciate it. This time is kind of cool because we're going to be talking about the Spanish from Age of Crusades. So this faction review was done previously with Chris, formerly of Poland, but he has since moved to the United States. So we've been doing Saga Thor. I believe it's like 5 years old at this point, nearly. So a lot has changed in Saga. There's been some, the rulebook update, the facts, another Javelin change, some, particularly with Crusades, a lot of battle boards have changed. So not only do we have a couple new things on the battle board, but obviously, Patrick, you're going to have a different take on a war band than somebody else. So we are revisiting an old faction for the first time in the current edition. So I did all the first edition battle boards, and right when I was done, second edition came out. So we are. I don't need a third edition here. We can just redo these. I think a 5-year break is long enough to revisit some of these. So awesome. So you volunteered. You got a couple war bands you were willing to do, but I think the Spanish kind of intrigued me more than any of them. And did you bring the Spanish to Fimbulwinter? Am I remembering that correctly or incorrectly?
No, I played in a tournament before that.
Oh, okay. So that's what I was thinking of.
I did win a tournament down here with the Spanish when I was playing them a lot. And that was really cool. There was one game that was a real nail biter with a guy who's very talented, and I managed to squeak out a win with like 3 or 4 points. He played a great game, and it just came down to the very last turn, and when we added up the points, I won, which was really cool. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to play him at Fimbulwinter. So unfortunately, that's all right.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I think you've gotten some games in lately, kind of in anticipation of this, or just during the year or something like that?
I'm kind of revisiting some of the old factions that I used to play, and there's a new Saga player that he's learning how to play. He's really good, don't get me wrong, and he does a great job and everything. But I've got more experience, and so I thought, like, well, I'll pull out an old faction that I don't remember very well, and play it with him, and so he's playing a faction that he's really familiar with, and I'm playing a faction that I hadn't played in a while. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it would kind of even things out, and we ended up with 2 draws, so
awesome.
Yeah, it was great. We had an awesome fun. The Spanish are really fun to play, in my opinion. They're one of my favorites. Just there's a lot you can do with them, and the way that in the combinations and stuff, the combos that you can do, and I really enjoyed it. But I'm starting to paint an army for Age of Chivalry. So they haven't seen. They got a little bit of dust on them, so I had to bring them out, play a few games, and actually they still play really well. So
Okay. Yeah, you don't see them a lot, but I think Terry was maybe playing them at Fimbulwinter this last go around, and you look at that board. There's some pretty tasty abilities on that board. There's some that aren't, but some of those you're like, in the right context or situation, that could be pretty cool. But let's take a look at the war band though, because the troop types can really have a pretty big impact on how these abilities play out. So The Warlord and Hearthguards are mounted on horses, no option there. Warriors can be on foot with no equipment, or are mounted on horses with javelins. And do you say Jinetes? Is that how do you?
Yeah, I think that's how you say it. Okay. I'm the wrong person to ask.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a person to ask about this stuff either. Someone can chime in the comments, I'm sure. And levies can be armed with bows or javelins, as many as you want. Just a single unit can have crossbows instead of bows. So that is your equipment options. And so have you kind of dialed in lately what you've liked to take with these guys?
Yeah. Well, there's several different ways of playing them. Normally I'm going to play, you're always going to take one unit of levy crossbow because it really synergizes. Yeah. You can't not take that. And then I'm going to try and take a unit of standard warriors. And I'm going to create a front line with those crossbowmen and those foot warriors. Okay. And I'm going to run anywhere from 8 to 10, depending on I shouldn't say that. I might run 11. And I'll usually throw a war banner on the foot guys if I can.
Interesting.
And then, so I've got, that as my base. But then after that, I'm usually going to have 3 points of Jinetes. And then it varies with that last point. I might throw in another thing of warriors, bump up my front lines to a larger amount. Like I might take 11 with a war banner, and then I'm going to have 4 units of Jinetes divided up, which is one of my favorite ways to do this. This board, it's not that it doesn't support Hearthguard, it just doesn't support them extremely well. The abilities that they do work with the Hearthguard when they get into melee are very costly, and you can't play them very often. But the Jinetes, I play this different. I'm not playing it as a shooting warband. I'm playing it as a melee band. All right, so I'm throwing those Jinetes in there into melee at the right moment, and they do quite well. And so I'm going to have a lot of those. Another option I've been experimenting with is actually taking 2 points of levies, 1 crossbow, 1 javelin. And that sounds crazy, but with the Spanish configuration and this stuff, if you play somebody for a few games, they figure out all your tricks, and it gets really hard because they know what you're doing.
Okay.
So you've got to have another lineup, and so usually I'm trying to get them to charge my foot warriors, and then I'm using abilities to set up my melee for the Jinetes. Well, if they're not attacking my foot warriors, well, those javelin levies make a great offensive tool. I can use them to go in and basically accomplish the same thing as if they were attacking me. So I can charge in with them and get the fatigue that I need placed on the opponent to use the Jinetes effectively. I can explain that more later when we go through the abilities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Two war bands. They're 2 points of levies, crossbow, javelin, or 1 point of levies, and then the rest mounted warriors. Well, not all mounted, but you got the front line.
Yeah, so they kind of built a board around those Jinetes, and a lot of the abilities, I think 2 are specifically mounted, but the other ones are just shooting, or you have to have javelins, or it doesn't matter. So the javelin levy actually benefit from this battle board quite a bit, and actually, we can even look at the kind of the first buff here, which is up top. They are a little different than everybody else, and instead of 3 activations, they just have 2. They have the Caballeros and Jinetes, and that's a mounted unit for any die. So that's a little buff for your warriors there. You can activate the mounted warriors on any die, and then your other activation, peons, peones. I like that one. It's just a foot unit. And so that would be all your levies and then your foot warriors. So your foot warriors, are basically the same, but the levy then will all activate on commons instead of uncommons. So it's just going to be easier to get that crossbow unit shooting and moving these guys up. So you could definitely, I could see dabbling two or three units of levies maybe. If you can picture the right combination there in the right scenario, could be pretty tasty.
It is, because this it's super easy to activate your levies. You're going to be able to activate them every turn, and like if you want to play defensively with the front line, just use the crossbow. But if you need to get aggressive with the front line, those javelin levies are awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then in place of the usual levy activation, they have an ability called Iberia, and this was changed in the FAQ, and it's a common or rare orders reaction. So not to really get in, but I think it used to be an activation reaction, so it happened during the turn, and now you can activate a Jinetes unit for a movement, basically after your opponent has placed all their Saga dice, but before their activation phase begins, you can do your movements then. So it'll happen all at once instead of waiting during the opponent's turn. So, I guess let's get into that. Are you saving dice up here for this one?
Yeah. Especially early game. It actually, there's some debate on whether it's good or bad. You lost the ability to shoot, which took away one of the combos that you could do. But it is easier to play now because you play it as an orders reaction. So you can move Jinetes forward, they get their free shot, and then at the start, in the orders phase, you can retreat them back, and guess what? You don't have any fatigue. You move in, shoot on your turn, retreat on their turn, no fatigue.
Boom. Yeah. So that's kind of the most obvious play here. Move up with your javelins, shoot. You're going to wait till the other guy's turn, and then you'll move them back with Iberia. Is you be aggressive with this? You ever move closer to the enemy, or are you always moving away?
I've never moved closer. Their defense is not to get caught until the right moment. Like you're not gonna they don't have a lot of. They got great defensive abilities. Don't get me wrong, but they don't have a lot, and so I'm not moving closer.
Sure.
But I mean, there is an exception. Like if I'm trying to flank, sometimes an opponent will have a big front line, and then they've got some juicy target behind that line that you can't get to. And so I might use it if there's an opportunity to get around to the backside, so I don't get back there with a bunch of fatigues. So, but that's a rare setting because you have to have enough space in order to get around there without getting your guys killed in the process. Because unless you've set that combat up, that melee up well, they die in droves.
Armor 3 warriors. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So you might use it to move past the enemy, but you definitely just want to end away from them as far as you can.
Right.
From the sound of it. So, all right.
And I have done that. Like I do a circle around, and then when they're not expecting it, then you come in and because they're focused on the front line or something like that. And then you come in and you can get access to something that a warlord or something else like that. That's a high value target. Maybe you used to put down some fatigue or do an initial melee on them. But yeah, it's good for flanking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not bad. All right. Well, let's get on to the abilities then. First shooting ability, I think there's a couple to come here, but Hidalgos. Your attack dice get a +1 bonus for each fatigue the target of your shooting attack currently has. So if I'm reading that right, we're looking at 3 fatigues. You get a +3 to hit. Is that what we're looking at here?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it is a great ability.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's phenomenal. And I think like the Spanish are not. I don't consider them a heavy skirmish type warband, but I treat them more of a mixed. And so I've got some good quality shooting. I'm only going to play this for 1 shooting, but this is my Hearthguard killer.
Yeah, man, yeah.
I mean, when you just think about this, if you're shooting armor 5 with crossbows and they've got a +3, so they got a +4.
Yeah, you could auto hit. Yeah, and exhaust
you're auto
Hearthguard unit.
You're auto hitting, and it's just like, 6 dice, 6 hits. Okay, all right, let's see. Well, there goes 3 Hearthguards. So it's a great way of finishing off an opponent's Hearthguard unit. And the other thing, like if you got them exhausted and you shoot with Hidalgos with your crossbows, and let's say they got a 6-pack of Hearthguard, you knock them down to 3. You can go in then with your Jinetes in melee, and you will eliminate those last 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one time I eliminated a unit of 8 Hearthguard with this ability, my crossbow, and I think 1 or 2 charges with 2 small units of Jinetes, and like all 8 mounted Hearthguard were gone.
Boom, boom. Nice. That's awesome. Do you use it if there's just 1 fatigue on them for just the +1? You just kind of use it anytime you can, or do you try to save it?
I'll use it if they've got a fatigue on there with the crossbow, because that's a +2, which is good. Mm-hmm. So if I'm shooting with the crossbows, if I'm shooting with the Jinetes, I'm not running a lot of big units of Jinetes. I'm running maybe one big unit of Jinetes and then some smaller ones. So if I'm shooting with a smaller unit and they only have 1 fatigue, and say I've got 5 to 7 guys, so I'm rolling 3 to 4 dice.
Mm-hmm.
I might play it if they're exhausted, because then I'm going to get some hits off of it. But if I can play it on the crossbow, I'd rather do that.
That's the way. Just maximize something mentally. Yeah, just about trying to get those auto hits if you can. That it's so pleasing to a Saga player, it seems.
Yeah.
All right. Good deal. Yeah, great ability. All right, coming up, next one down here. Pretty darn tasty here, but it is a rare, very similar to the Carthaginian board, and kind of their one ability here, delay, but activation reaction. If the target unit is activated for a charge or shooting attack while it has at least 1 fatigue, remove a fatigue and cancel its activation. The unit may not be activated again this turn. So, they have to charge or shoot. They have to have a fatigue when they do that. So it looks like they'll have a chance to rest maybe. But yeah, anytime you can shut down the enemy, I think that's pretty good. Is this, does the rare go here? Are you getting a lot of use out of this, or how do you play it?
Yeah. I'm going to put the rare here in the mid to late game. In the early game, I probably won't put it there. But as the game progresses, you're going to get a lot of fatigue on units with the Spanish. There's going to be fatigue all over. And then later, you'll see there's an ability to move that fatigue around. So I use it, defensively, to prevent a counterattack. So, like, if I get it to melee, and I know that I'm not going to eliminate that unit, but I'm going to do some damage, and they're going to have a fatigue, hopefully 2 on them. If not, I will put fatigue on them. Then on the next turn, even if they rest them, if they try and activate them, I'm just going to freeze them right there, and then they don't get to do that attack. So that saves my unit for another round. because again, if it's not a good situation and they get to charge your Jinetes, you're probably going to lose most of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Best defense, just kind of stopping them from even fighting you in the first place.
It plays into their whole strategy of defense is avoidance. Like, I'm going to attack you when I can, but I'm not going to let you attack you when you want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. That's cool. Yeah. And depending on the warband's composition, Diana deployment, where the units are, this could really, they might literally have one unit that can be in position to attack you, and you're going to stun it, if it tries to do anything. So, in the right circumstances, this could be quite a powerful ability.
Oh, I beat the Welch one time using that ability. They came in, I stunned them, and they're like, they come in and then retreat, and I stunned them, and it happened to be one of their big Hearthguard units, and that was the end of them. They didn't get to retreat after that. So, it was great because I kind of negated that ability for them to scoot out of there.
Perfect. Yeah. Definitely the opponent needs to be aware of this ability and definitely play around it. So it has a kind of psychological aspect to it as well, where they might not want to overextend themselves trying to run you down, trying to get you, if they know they're going to be stunned in future turns. So cool. All right. Let's move down to ability. This one was fact and different than what it was. I don't remember what it was, but two uncommons. You pop this in your orders phase. You designate up to 2 of your Jinetes units. They gain the determination special rule. They cannot charge, but they gain S distance to their movements. And then at the end of the turn, each of them discards a fatigue. So, yeah, what do you... we kind of our pre-show email discussion here. What the people know your thoughts here, Patrick?
Well, I'll be honest. I don't use this ability that much, and I would use the old ability in the past and in the first 2 turns to weaken up some units, maybe kill a casualty here or there. But the reality is, you can almost accomplish the same thing by putting 2 uncommons in the activation, and then 2 dice in Iberia, and you can move 2 forward. They shoot for free, and then they move back. The only advantage to this is that you get an additional movement of S, and so it requires the same dice, basically. The disadvantage to it is you are committed. You're committed to 4 dice at that point. So if you are going to move 2 units forward and shoot, which I typically am not doing a lot, I'm just going in with 1 to try and either get a couple casualties, 1 or 2, or get fatigue down. That's usually what I'm using the early harassment force to lay fatigue with another ability. So it is expensive because it's going to be using half of your available dice. I don't know, depending on how many units you have, how many dice you're rolling, this could use half or even more than half of the dice you have on the board. So, and you're committing 2 units to do that. Pretty costly for the added distance of S, which I could see that maybe in turn 2. Usually in turn 1, I don't have enough dice and they're not close enough to pull that off. So you're probably going to play this in turn 2. But honestly, I play it differently. So in my early game, I'm trying to press my front line forward fast and, do some damage with the front line and the crossbowmen. So I can't really throw the dice in here and commit to that and still be able to accomplish what I want to do with the front line. So
yeah, makes sense. I mean, you can think of situations where it could be useful and would come into play, but just as far as like building your battle plan around it or something like that, like you say, it's kind of a costly ability. One thing that I kind of think about when I look at this is you could use this to, if the enemy ends their move, like they tried to engage you or something, and ends their move within medium, within one or two of these units, this will be a good ability to pop to do a double tap with the javelins. So just ignore the movement part. Use determination to do 2 shots, and then you got to pay the dice to do 2 more shots with the javelins. But at the end of the turn, then when you have a fatigue from shooting twice, you will just kind of discard it. So that could be a play there. Again, that's for 4 dice, but you do get to shoot 4 times. So sometimes with shooting, you just, the first one doesn't do jack, the second one doesn't do jack, but it's the third and the fourth one that all of a sudden, just, completely opens it up. But again, that kind of, your opponent has to be in the right place for you to be able to take advantage of that. So, yeah.
The one good use that I found, I mean, that's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm just going to piggyback on that.
Yeah.
If you're playing a faction that's heavy shooting, and they've got, bows or crossbows, with foot, and, they're going to be armored 3/3. Then I might consider playing this more, and then I would adjust my Jinetes units to have 2 larger units where I'm rolling 4 or maybe 5 dice, and go in and try and weaken those shooting units before my front line moves into range. Because they've got that added movement at S, which is going to make it easier for you to get into range to get all your shots, and stay out of the shooting of another faction's foot range levies.
So if they have shooting or cav, that extra S, it might make all the difference, and you might use it every turn in those games. Otherwise, sometimes it just won't matter. And in those cases, you might just kind of do it manually with Iberia and activations, like you say. Kind of do a piecemeal, keep your options open.
Don't get me wrong. Like in the first 3 turns, I'm sending a unit of Jinetes in to shoot. But I use the Iberia and the activation to, I send them in with activation, shoot, and then bring them back on the next turn. Either to A, lay fatigue down, or B, weaken some units if I can. But this one commits, like if you're going to do that, you're committing to a skirmish style warband.
Yeah. And then too, with Iberia too, you get the timing's different. This you have to move during your turn. Iberia is their turn, so you get to see what Saga dice they rolled, and you get to see where they place their activation. It's that turn they rolled all uncommons with their warrior warband. They can only activate 1 unit. All of a sudden, okay, I'll move this one, but this one, it's perfectly fine where it is. I'll just carry this forward or move something else up. So like you said, sometimes it'll be useful, sometimes not so much. All right, so let's move on back to the regular battle board here. Battle Wary. This is a common melee or shooting reaction. All units which roll more than 8 attack dice suffer a fatigue after the entire shooting attack or melee has been resolved and cannot be activated again this turn. So now, is this Saga veteran? You're chomping at the bit here. There's two abilities where the opponent cannot activate again for the rest of the turn. This one's a little. Is this one just a common versus rare? So, but it has the attack dice stipulation. Which one are you getting off more?
I'm playing this one all the time.
This one goes off more. Okay.
No, without a doubt. This goes into my game plan. You're going to play this one in early a lot. Now, late game, you won't be able to play this as much because the units may not be generating more than 8. But you can generate. This works really well with a warlord. You can go, because they're generating 8 dice, so it doesn't affect, them. Like if you're rolling more than 8 dice, it affects you.
Both Both units.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're rolling 10 dice or 11 dice, you're going to get that fatigue as well. So you don't really want to do that. I don't think I've ever done that in, I don't know, 5 years I've been playing Spanish.
Interesting.
But I'm going to.
Yeah, that's a big restriction.
I play that one all the time. It's great. And I'm using it. I'm using it because what I'm doing is like I'm moving my foot warriors forward and enticing a melee. And when they come in, you've got a unit that charges them. I'm going to close ranks because I'm going to use 10 or 11 guys, so I'm rolling more than 8. So I close ranks, so boom, I drop down below that threshold.
Yeah, you get the best of both worlds. The Jinetes are locked in. They either there's 9 of them or there's not.
Exactly. So I close ranks. I play this ability, so they're going to get a fatigue. I'm not going to spend the fatigue on this turn. I'll talk about the next ability. I'm going to play both of those abilities on that, and so they're going to get 2 fatigues from those abilities, from Battle Weary and then Desperate Maneuvers.
Okay.
And I may play those in different orders. Like, say they're only rolling 8 dice, well, I'll play Desperate Maneuvers because it gives them 2 more dice, and all of a sudden they're over that threshold. Then I play Battle Weary. And so at the end of that melee, they're stunned and exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be stuck there. They can't move. And now they're a really prime target for my next turn.
Yeah. This is why there's some brinkmanship going on here. They're not going to want to trigger abilities. They might want to avoid using their larger units. There's so much psychology and going on with this one. It's pretty awesome ability for just a common. Definitely fair, I guess. If it affects both of you, it keeps it in check a little bit. But let's take a look at that next one down because Desperate Maneuvers, I think is a pretty good combo here. Common or uncommon, melee or shooting reaction. The enemy suffers a fatigue, and your opponent gains 2 attack dice. So, giving your opponent additional attack dice, not really a good idea. But if that takes them over that 8-man or 8 attack threshold, there, just even probably worth it. Yeah,
it is worth it because with we're going to get to some of these other abilities with the Jinetes. Once you've got that unit exhausted, you will wipe it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like you will, between the crossbows and the Jinetes, you're going to wipe it out. So that foot unit, I'm not attacking with it. I'm just letting it hit close ranks, letting it hit, and I'm putting fatigue. And my goal is to have them do that and exhaust 2 or 3 units. And usually I will get 2 or 3 charges on my foot units before they're completely depleted. And in order to kill those 10 warriors, it costs them 3 units. So it's like that's a win, even though giving them dice gets them more hits on my foot guys. But in the flip side, I'm going to get more out of it. Playing the Spanish is like playing chess. You've got to think a move ahead. So I'm always thinking about my turn, their turn. So I mean, maybe I get a little bit of damage on my turn, but I'm going to get more damage when my turn comes back around. Or I get a little bit more damage when So when I'm loading my board, I'm loading it for 2 turns.
Sure.
Their turn, my turn. Their turn, my turn. And so when I'm putting those dice down, that's what I'm doing. And I'm really trying to just get them to exhaust their units and then wipe them out with the Jinetes.
Yeah. So not only will be exhausted between this one and the last one, they can be exhausted if you get them both off. Even if they're not, they might not be able to activate again. And then in either case, on your turn, if they have 2 or 3 fatigues, they're probably going to be auto hit by a very large shooting volley. So you can kind of see how these are all working together here. So very, very cool. So we talked more about melee. Either one of these can be popped on shooting. I mean, battle wear is pretty difficult, I think, to trigger during a shooting activation. Not a lot of war bands can get up to 9 attack dice. But have you ever used it with success against shooting?
Battle weary, no. I don't think I've ever played that against shooting because very rarely does anybody break that threshold.
Mm-hmm.
But I have played desperate maneuvers, especially if there's a foot range levy unit, that's taken some shots, and I want to target them. You don't need to get their armor down nearly as much. So if you can get 1 fatigue on them, that's great. 2 fatigues, and man, you're golden. Like, you don't really need to get them down. Foot warriors that are armor 4/4 and hearth guards, which armor 5/5, you got to get them exhausted. They've got to become exhausted before you attack with the Jinetes. But if I got a single fatigue on some ranged levy, I can take a big Jinetes unit in there and do some serious damage because they can't close ranks, and I'm going to have a +1 with the javelins.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely going to take some big hits off of that because I'll take their armor down to 2 with the fatigue, and then I'm charging in with a +1, so I'm auto hitting. And if I go in with a pack 9, I got 9 auto hits.
Sweet.
I mean, it does some serious damage to the levy.
Yeah, agreed.
And
giving your opponent those 2 shooting attack dice is usually a little more palatable. No matter what they're shooting at, you're blocking on 4s at least, and it could be a little better than that perhaps. Getting those fatigues on those levies is key to wiping them out. So
one little tip, and I know this sounds crazy because and you'll probably hate it, if you're going against some shooting and just putting a single dice in combat bonus for an extra defense dice against shooting, it adds up over time. So like if you're going to play desperate maneuvers on the levy, they're going to be shooting at, say, your foot warriors, and putting a single dice in the combat bonus, which is about your only way of really getting defense dice for shooting. It will help reduce some of the sting of them shooting with extra dice. And so I think it's worth just a single dice in there, just as a side note.
Okay. Oh yeah. Good thoughts there. So usually you want to be out of range as your defense, but if you are in range, desperate maneuvers, well, combat bonus defense dice can go a long way. I like it. All right, moving down to Blazing Sun. So, shooting ability, discard all your attack dice. For a common, the enemy unit suffers a fatigue. So, we've already seen some of these abilities key off fatigue. You could definitely, I guess, on your turn, maybe set up a +1 combo of some kind, or just let the fatigues pile up. I don't know. How do you like to use it?
Both.
Yeah.
This is a great way. Early game, like I said, I do my skirmishing, and I'm trying to lay fatigue. So one of the things that I may do, and I'm trying to do this actually, is as the front lines are coming closer, and I know I'm going to get charged on the next turn by a unit, I will, send a Jinetes unit, play Blazing Suns to put a fatigue down on that opponent. So when they charge, now that's going to do a couple of things. Either A, they're going to have to put an extra dice in activations to rest it.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't, they're going to come in with a fatigue, which I'm going to bump my armor on my foot warriors to 5. If they do that, and close ranks, because I want them to be able to take 3 big hits, so I can exhaust units. The other option, if they do that, the side effect that is they don't have a dice for an ability, so they're going to want to take that fatigue off, and they're like, okay, well, I got this dice. do I want to play a melee ability or do I want to get rid of the fatigue? Most guys are going to get rid of the fatigue. If they don't get rid of the fatigue, now I got a fatigue to bump my armor up. Now maybe they put it on ability, but either way, it's forcing them to commit resources that make my guys more survivable.
Yeah, slowing them down one way or the other.
It's just slow them down a little bit so that I can get them prepped up for a big attack with the Jinetes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is pretty tasty here. What's the line though for how many attack dice you're willing to discard here? I mean, obviously the dream, is just you got one warrior left. He's got his free shot, and you convert that shot into a fatigue automatically. That's pretty tasty. But at the start of the game, you're rocking some decent size units. So,
right.
What would you trade to get that fatigue on them?
Well, I always have one unit of 5 Jinetes at the start of the game.
Okay, yeah.
Now, sometimes I've played where I've had up to 3 units of 5, where I'm just laying fatigue down and using them to prep for some melees and stuff like that. But I always remember, like, the Jinetes are useful even down to like 1 or 2 warriors because you can do 2 things with them. 1, I can put fatigue down using this ability. But 2, I can use another ability we're going to talk about to transfer fatigues to them to get them off my better units.
Okay.
So having a few small units of Jinete isn't bad. Matter of fact, I've been very successful. I used to play 3 units of 5, 1 unit of 9. That was pretty good.
Oh, okay.
I've also played. If I take 3 points of Jinetes, I've played 2 units of 5, 2 units of 7. And when we talk about the next ability, you'll understand why that works.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, well, let's talk about it. So, Reconquista. This is an uncommon. Orders ability till the end of the turn. Your units equipped with javelins may not activate to shoot, but get 2 bonus attack dice during every melee. So, I don't know. You think you like this one? You get some mileage out of it?
Oh, I get a lot of mileage out of it. You think about like they're getting 2 bonus attack dice. So you got a unit of 5 and a unit of 7. All right. So I'm rolling 7 dice and 9 dice. Mm-hmm. Like if I attack with those 2 units, so it adds up real quick. And there's a sequence to it. Like if I got an exhausted unit and the first Jinete strike goes in, I spend one of the person's fatigue. They're exhausted, right? So they have a negative.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So my Jinete's armor is 4. So I'll go in with a small unit first, spend a fatigue. I can raise it to 5 for survivability, or I can lower their armor 1, and I still have armor 4 because they have a negative. All right. Then the second attack, I go in with 7 or more. Now I go all in. So I might spend a fatigue to raise my armor, or there's another ability we'll talk about later that I'll play. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to lower their armor with the other 2 fatigues. So if they're starting with armor 4, I'm going to take them down to 2. If they're starting with armor 5, I'm going to take them down to 3. And if they don't close ranks, I get a +1. So I'm going to be hitting. I'm going to be hitting pretty well.
That's cool. I like that. They just, not only are they exhausted, but you're going to hit them 2 or 3 times, one right after the other. And if they close ranks and just have 1 or 2 or 3 attack dice, you could use that 1 fatigue to take them down, or just ensure they really don't hit. Just kind of depends what you're lined up against. Yeah, it's kind of the hornets going in, buzzing around, stinging one after the other. I like it.
Yeah, it's very effective. I know some guys like to play big units of Jinetes, and they do have some value, but they also become targets. And next thing you know, they're chasing them around the board trying to get rid of that big unit. So if I've got a lot of small units, they just don't know what to go after.
Sure. Yeah.
They're like, well, what do I? Like, where's your key unit? You're like, well, there isn't one. So anyway, that's my thought.
That's cool.
It works a lot.
Awesome. All right,
So,
let's pop back up. So you mentioned previously kind of moving fatigues around and stuff. So this ability chaos here is the secret sauce to make that happen. Orders reaction for a rare. Choose warband, take all of its fatigues. Redistribute these fatigues throughout the warband, giving each unit a maximum of 2 fatigues. Any fatigues which cannot be placed are discarded. So you can clean yourself up before the opponent gets a crack at you, or you can just see where they put the dice and just do your best to make sure the units they want to do stuff with are loaded with fatigue. Is that which one are you typically doing, or is it a fairly even split?
that's a great question. Off the top of my head, I'd have to say it's an even split. To me, it depends on who has more fatigues, and also the quality of the units that are being exposed. So if I got my warlord, and sometimes I'll play the lifeguard unit, and I use resilience 2 if I do. And so let's say I'll end up with 2 fatigues because I use 1 to cancel a couple hits, and then I've got a fatigue for the melee. And then now he's a prime target for them on their turn. Well, it's a real shock when you all of a sudden move those 2 fatigues to this unit over here with 2 warriors.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is not right. Like you did a bunch of damage on your turn, and they're thinking, yeah, I'm going to kill the warlord this turn. And they're like, what? So, but the flip side is, if they've got a lot of fatigues, because your line is going to get pushed back. I mean, these guys are not like, stand and just pound into, front line like the Vikings or something like that. Mm-hmm. You're going to get pushed back because you've got like one unit that's, holding them back. You're sacrificing your foot warriors to do that. Well, they may have units in the back that they're not using anymore because they got a bunch of fatigue on them. Well, you just move all that to the front line, and all of a sudden the front line's fatigue, and I'm like, oh, yeah, come at me, man. I like to see you do that. You got 2 fatigues on that unit. Let's see how that goes,
Yeah.
I'm going to raise my armor to 5, and, let's see if you kill my Jinetes. You know what I mean? So, sometimes, they've got, leftover units with a bunch of fatigue, and you just move it. So it really depends on that. But I do use this a lot. I'm going to use it almost every game. I think the only time I don't play this is if I don't roll a rare in the later half of the game. It will change the turn. Like it is a big change, especially when there's a bunch of fatigue down. Either on yours or theirs. Usually there's a little bit of both, but it's a really. I mean, again, this kind of goes into your defense or offense. Like you can lay the fatigue down, and they're not going to be able to rest it all off. And so now you've got fatigue on units, and that's setting up for a shooting with Hidalgos or Jinetes or some Cincinnati charges, by moving that fatigue around. So
that's cool.
It's great.
Yeah. So first, second, third turn rare. Where are you going to put that usually? You usually save it.
Yeah, I'm gonna in first turn rare. Okay, hear me out here. Yeah. If I get a rare in the first turn, I'm gonna put it in the next ability, Treachery, with a common.
Okay.
And it sounds crazy, but when my front line is fresh, they got no fatigues on them, and somebody charges in, a great combo is Desperate Maneuvers. You give them 2 extra attack dice and a fatigue, and then you play Treachery, and they lose all their attack dice.
Yeah, right. that sounds good to me, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It makes your front line last longer because they get 1 free hit. Like, oh, yep, sorry, didn't do any damage. Great. No worries. Try it again. Oh, wait, you're exhausted? No problem. Because you can still play Battle Weary, you'll play Desperate Maneuvers, Battle Weary, put the 2 fatigues down, and then play Treachery. And man, I tell you, man, I had a guy just he came in, charged, and then all of a sudden his eyes got really big after he played all these abilities, and he had 18 attack dice, and he's like, do we still have the combat? I'm like, yeah, but you're not rolling. I mean, I didn't do a lot of damage because I didn't have a lot of attack dice, but his unit was exhausted the next turn, and I wiped it out. And I took literally no casualties. Expensive, but it kept my front line survivable for another turn. I played a tournament one time where once I got that ability up in Desperate Maneuver, the guy stopped attacking me. Yeah,
because you're gonna eat it somewhere. So if you can't muster two good melees, there's really no point. So Yeah. If you're good at the terrain and you get it into where it's kind of funneling them, and they get a unit that's stalled and it's in the way, it can block a second charge. And so they weren't, because of the terrain, they weren't able to charge with a second unit, and but they didn't charge with the first either because they were like, yeah, I don't think this is going to go very well. And I'm like, no, it's not. Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, we've got three good abilities requiring a rare, and all three of these, you probably don't mind loading them up early if you can. So I mean, is there kind of a big difference in games when you get a good streak of rares turn 1 and 2 versus seeing your first rare on turn 5? Would you say with this board?
Yeah,
some can handle that. Yeah. Some can't.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great board, don't get me wrong, but I think it's well balanced because of the dice cost. Like, if you don't roll rares, there's a very specific ratio of commons, uncommons, and rares that you need to roll consistently to get this thing humming. If you don't roll that, you're going to be hurting, which is fine because the benefits are great. So, the balance is you've got to have those really nice Saga dice rolls to make this board really hum. And, you've got 3 abilities that are competing for the rare. I would probably say the ones that I use the most, the one I use the most is probably Chaos. If I do get a rare early, before I got a fatigue on my front line, I'll throw it on Treachery. But if I've got the War Banner, I'll still throw it on Treachery. But yeah, it's not as effective because sometimes you can't get it off. You can't get that fatigue off. Basically, like, you've got it on and you take it off on your turn. You move them forward. You're just going to have to, you want to get those guys in, and I'm trying to get them charged, but maybe they're not charged, and sometimes even with the War Banner, I haven't been able to make the Treachery viable. I will tell you a great combination, if you're really lucky, is Chaos and Treachery.
Yeah,
if you go in with your Warlord and then he makes some attack, and all the units around him that can counterattack have fatigue on them. You play Chaos on the opponent's turn, move all the fatigue off, and boy, that changes the game because the first attack, they're not going to do any damage, nothing, because they're going to lose it all. And then he's got resilience afterwards, and so he's going to take several good hits to kill him. So it's a really good combination. Late is Chaos Treachery. And I always keep a dice on battle maneuvers just in case they rest a unit.
Yeah, I think you can just load up Stunned, Chaos, Treachery. If you get the dice and you're still going into turn 3 or 4 with all 3 of those loaded up, like it's gonna be pretty tough for your opponent.
Yeah, I mean,
to make something happen. Just whatever they can think of. You're just kind of watching, just waiting, and you just kind of move everything around just to prevent whatever they cooked up,
Yeah, no, it's great. And that is kind of your defense is those those kind of abilities and movement. Staying away from stuff and then stunning them and things like that. It's just you're playing a fatigue game with this faction. It's all about the fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. All right, well, let's get down to the last one here. Another 2-die. We got 3 2-dies on this board here. Lances and javelins. Common and uncommon melee mounted unit. Gain 2 defense dice for each friendly unit with javelins within medium of the enemy unit. So if you're popping this on a Jinetes, they do count for themselves at least, but the Hearthguard Warlord will need some buddies around here to make it work. 2 dice though, you need those guys around. I mean, for just be 2 dice, probably not a good trade. Often do you have the dice to get this going?
This is probably the least played ability that I play on the board. I have played all the abilities, and I do play them all. This one, a lot of times, if it's mid or late game, and there's a fairly large unit, maybe of Hearthguards that have presented themselves as a target, maybe they've overextended or I flanked them. Going in, and what you do here is you go in and you're going to play Jinetes, activate them, move them in, shoot, move another one in, shoot, maybe throw a fatigue on the unit, and then you've got 2 Jinete units. Maybe you've got a foot javelin unit nearby, and then
okay. So a mounted trigger, but friendly javelins on foot count. Okay.
Yeah, javelin on foot count. They count.
Okay, the boost. Okay.
They can't benefit from it because it's mounted.
Yeah.
But it says friendly unit with javelins. It doesn't say friendly mounted,
Yeah. Okay.
Then you go in with your warlord and you're getting, 4, 6 defense dice with resilience. And so hopefully you'll be able to make a serious dent on that unit. It's not ideal. I would rather charge the unit when it's exhausted. But if you're not able to get the fatigues on it, this is a good way to use your warlord to get in there. This is also the way that I would use a Hearthguard unit if I chose. And I have played a unit of 4. I wouldn't do a big unit because then, like if you wanted to play Battle Weary, you cannot. And Battle Weary is like if you're going up against a 6-pack Hearthguard and you've got a 4-pack of Hearthguard, Battle Weary is actually pretty good because they're going to be over that threshold.
They just have no choice. Yeah, they will be. Yeah,
and so they're going to be stunned. You put a fatigue on them, and then you charge in with your Hearthguard. You can raise your armor to 6, and with lances and javelins because you're still going to shoot with the Jinetes. And like in Age of Crusades, there's a lot of mounted Hearthguards, so they got armor 4. So going in and shooting with Jinetes isn't bad. You might take out 1 or 2 guys. So you're going to have really good defenses using Battle Weary with a unit of Hearthguard and a couple of Jinetes or Javelin guys. So your Hearthguards go in and you're getting a lot of defense dice. The biggest problem is cost, and there's only one ability that's giving you defense dice. That's it.
Yeah. Good stuff. You kind of, it's like if you're going to use in this ability, you're like planning your whole turn around it to make it deliver this strike where you're going to have to eat some enemy attacks one way or the other, and the fatigues aren't quite in place yet. So you're just going to go in with this one, and
I'll be honest. Usually, when I'm playing that is when my front line has gotten wiped out. Like, let's say my foot warriors, they've taken 2 or 3 hits, and they're down to 1 or 2 guys, and it's like, and it's just. I don't have that ability to put fatigue on, and so now I've got to try and make a melee without having the fatigue on that unit. So that's usually when I'm doing it.
Okay.
Not always, but like I said, I don't play this ability very much.
Yeah, 2 dice. In certain circumstances, you'd be better off putting 2 dice on combat bonus, potentially. If you can't get 4 or 6 or 8 out of this. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So we saw some hot stuff on the rares and some juicy stuff in between there. Do you? I think you already mentioned, but you got fun playing the Spanish?
Oh yeah, they're a lot of fun. I think with the Spanish I've wiped more boards than with any other faction. So
awesome.
They like the guy that I just played recently. He's like, man, you don't have any defensive abilities, but your offense is just off the charts. When you get this thing humming and you're they're playing into your battle strategy and you're laying down enough fatigue to exhaust units, and then you're using Reconquista to make your Jinete attack. Man, it adds up. It adds up quick. And you can do real well. Then it can go badly. Don't get me wrong. Because, if you don't get the right dice at the right time, you're just running away if you can. And sometimes it's a little bit tough, but they're great fun. I will say they are hard to play. They're easy and they're hard. They're easy in that your lineup is pretty straightforward. You're going to be taking crossbows, you're going to be taking some foot warriors, and then some Jinetes, and then you can decide with 1 point whether you want to take a merc unit or a unit of Hearthguard. And that might depend on whether you're going against a shooting faction or a melee-based faction. Mm-hmm. If they've got great armor against shooting, well, I'm going to lean towards the melee. If they're a big shooting faction and they've got weak armor against shooting, I may try outdistancing their foot, range units with my Jinetes, and so I may play more of a skirmish warband, sending them in, trying to shoot up the levies, and then pulling them out.
Cool. So you got a few options there. Do you like any particular mercs with this one? You mentioned the lifeguard. I think those are always a great choice.
It's a good choice. I pretty much would just use a lifeguard because it makes your warlord, a serious threat. Because you can charge in with either 8 attack dice and resilience 3, but a lot of times I'm doing 10 and 2. I'm going to 10 attack dice and resilience 2, and it really makes him a lot more survivable. You can cancel 2 fatigues. You'll probably end with 2 fatigues. Because you'll probably get a couple of hits on your warlord. But guess what? You've got chaos, and that's why
that's cool.
Chaos makes the lifeguard the obvious choice for the merc, because you've got that resilience, and I heard you mention it when you were talking with Stack about like over relying on resilience, and then you're exhausted. Well, that's no good because then you get a -1 to your attack. That's what I'm trying to do to them.
Yeah.
But this faction, because of chaos, it's like other factions that allow you to remove extra fatigue. I can move this over to a 2-unit Jinetes that I'm not really doing anything with. I can put those 2 fatigues over there. So it is viable. Mm-hmm. And I think it's great. I want to experiment with more, with bigger levy units, maybe running 2 or 3. Or 3 units of levies and a foot using some more javelin guys. I worked out a really cool routine with the javelins. You know, a lot of guys on the front line, they got a unit of Hearthguard or Warriors right next to their ranged levy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I kind of flank a Jinete unit of 5 out to the side, and then I push that Javelin unit where I got one guy within L of the shooters, you know.
Yeah, I love doing that.
You know, and they can shoot, but they're only going to roll 1 or 2 dice.
Yeah.
But then I can double activate those guys. And with these abilities and stuff, you go in, you can hit those the range guys with the javelin guys, and then when they withdraw, you get to shoot, do some more damage. You're going to do 4 or 5 casualties on them, and they've got a fatigue on them at this point. Well, I might come in with my Jinetes. Just 5 Jinetes is going to give you another 2 or 3 casualties, and now you've reduced them to maybe 3 or 4. But that unit that's protecting them, because you flanked in with your Jinetes, they can't charge the Jinetes. So you use your javelin guys as bait, because they're going to spend the fatigue to raise their armor, right? So they have no fatigue on them.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get charged. Well, then you play battle weary and desperate maneuvers, and then it's lost. And they're stuck out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it fools them every time.
Fools them every time.
They're like, oh, I'm going to kill their levy. Like, oh, I just lost my Hearthguard, you know?
Yeah.
Like, they run out. It's like you wipe out their levy unit. Like, yeah, your levy unit's going to be reduced, quite a bit, if but man, it never fails. They always go for it. Especially when you can't get them to charge you and they're just trying to shoot you. Man, you charge in when you double activate those javelin guys, and boy, that it snowballs into a real fun melee.
That's fun. Yeah, so it's always difficult for the Spanish opponent to foresee the sequence of events that can occur here and the repercussions of all these abilities interacting sometimes. And kind of depending what they do, you can just do something else too. So. Yeah, you're just kind of watching, waiting, just pop them when it hurts the most. So, cool. Yeah. So, I think that is probably going to be it for this one. So, if anybody has played with or against the Spanish here, especially since that FAQ update, the Javelin change obviously hit these guys pretty hard, and then just a couple of these abilities that work differently. Arguably worse. You could definitely argue that. But yeah, let us know below. And if you've gotten good use out of the levies, let us know. I'm curious. I think there's definitely some mileage there, boosting up the levies perhaps. But you still got to kind of cover all your bases. You need some Jinetes. You want some foot warriors for closing ranks, getting up in the enemy's face. So probably won't be able to do everything, but yeah, definitely kind of intrigued here by the board. That's a good sign of a decent faction review. If I'm thinking about the models right now, how fast could I get these out? We shall see. So, yeah, man, thanks for coming on, and thanks to Sean, Patrick, Mitchell, Scott, Frank, Britt, DJ, Robin, and the rest of the Saga Thursday patrons. Patrick, you are a patron as well. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate that. And I think that is going to be it for this one. We'll check you later, folks. All right. Bye-bye. Saga! If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon, or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.